So these episodes are fun for me because the whole purpose of starting this podcast, or part of the purpose, was to just connect with folks with you that I haven't seen in years, used to connect, used to be on the same team. So this is going to be a fun episode. I'm curious to see where your journey's gone to, but also you got some pretty cool endeavors going on right now down here in Charlotte. So I think this is going to be a fun one for people.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I appreciate it. It's good to connect and link up again. It's obviously been some years, right, since we were in New England. So good to connect on this platform.
So from like a 10,000 foot view, if we start like early Darrius Barnes, first chapter, playing at Duke, getting drafted, where does that journey begin for you?
Yeah, I mean, when you sit on the surface, that's where it is. But in the journey begins long ago. I'm from Raleigh, North Carolina, and so growing up when I was 5 years old, I grew up, playing soccer and playing all sports really. I've tried to be as multifaceted as possible. Played soccer growing up, played basketball. Those are my two favorite sports growing up. I was probably better in soccer, which is probably where I am now. But, just being able to be that person, in different rooms and different sports and different arenas, I think that was kind of a microcosm of where I ended up at. Fast forward years later, being able to have a college career, play soccer professionally, you're dealing with, like I said, a lot of diverse groups and different people. And so as I kind of take snapshots back in my life, you start to see different instances of different scenarios and situations and circumstances that have kind of played true to where I ended up at for sure.
So then when your time at Duke, your time playing in the Carolinas, is the rivalry with UNC the hype that it lives up to be?
For sure. I mean, I get it now. I get it now like that. That's something that's like, it's stamped on you. It's tattooed, especially being in North Carolina now, and more specifically in Charlotte. Like, Charlotte's full, I hate to admit it, full of Carolina fans. And so for me, I embrace, as a Duke guy, I embrace it's something, it's a fun rivalry. It's a loving rivalry in some aspects of it, but it's a competitive one as well. And so, you got those two shades of blue, and those different teams compete against each other in whatever sport. It could be soccer, it could be basketball, it could be football. The teams could be good or not good, but it always means something. I think when Duke and Carolina met this year, basketball, both teams are on rank, but it still have the same war and same excitement and same engagement, as if both the teams were ranked number 1 and number 2 in the country. So I would say it lives up to it. I think it's the best college sports for sure.
So then from Duke, you got drafted by New England, all right? And that was early 2000s? 2009. Okay, so mid to late 2000s. And then we're now 2023. So I can imagine where the league is now to where it was when you were in the league, right? How has that changed over the last better decade?
Yeah, I mean, the league's evolved drastically. To be honest, I speak with people today, and I'm like, I don't know if I could play in today's league. Just from when you look at it from a competition standpoint, just the caliber of players that are being brought into the league and the quality of play, just how the speed of play is right now. It's just a very different game. People always used to talk about MLS just being very physical. This league was tough from a physical standpoint, but now you're starting to see the actual talent and qualities that players bring, and it's very noticeable. At the beginning, those baby steps, right? And so I feel like when I was in the league in 2009, coming to the league, we're at MLS kind of 1.5, 2.0. You start to see some clubs actually generate fandom. When I came into the league with Seattle, coming in to be able to play in front of fans like that, in front of an audience and atmosphere like that. Thought it was fantastic. And then, years later, you're seeing that you have your Portlands of the world, you have your Atlantas of the world coming in. So you're starting to see all these different fan bases and excitement pop up in all these different areas of the country, which has been fantastic. And that just promotes the sport, promotes the growth of the sport, promotes the league, which has been fantastic. And now I think we're going to start to get into a new phase, as we approach 2026. With the World Cup coming to North America, obviously hosted here in the U.S. and Mexico and Canada. That's gonna be another kind of launching pad moment, a moment for the league to catapult. And so I think the league's on the right trajectory. MLS is on the right trajectory in terms of steady growth. Obviously the Apple deal, I think, is a huge one, getting more eyeballs on the game, having the game get more accessible to people throughout the world. And so I think the league taking the appropriate steps, and hopefully it just continues to get to a point where it's known as kind of a top four sport in the United States, and not just kind of on the fringes.
Where does it fit? Well, you said top four sport in the country, but where does MLS as far as rankings in the league nowadays rank? Is it considered a top four, or is it kind of on the fringe, like 5, 6?
I mean, I think majority of the people put it in top 5. I think. I mean, if you look at, depends on what metrics you look at, and obviously you can look at metrics very subjective or objectively. If you look at it, it's cracking there with their NHLs and MLBs. Some people say MLB is baseball is a dying sport. I'm never one to combat any other sport, but I do think MLS is knocking on the door and being right there in terms of a sport of choice, a league of choice that fans want to tune into. You're starting to get more casual fans invested in the game and attracting themselves to their local market and their local teams, which I think is important. You look at a market like Austin, who didn't have any professional sports, and you see what they're doing, selling out their matches in MLS, and us here in Charlotte, having the record for attendance last year, hosting over 74,000 fans on the Bank of America Stadium. People didn't think soccer could live and survive in the South. And so I just think it goes to show just, the options that we have here from an entertainment standpoint and the sports standpoint, that you can't just, silo yourselves or put yourselves in a pigeonhole. People want these different options. People are interested in different sports, and they're not just attracted to one sport.
Yeah, because the South is typically viewed as football.
Actually, that's the thing people say. We're not compete against football, right? But in my eyes, it's not competing. It's just being another entertainment option, for people to tune into. And I think what we've shown here in Charlotte with Charlotte FC is that if you focus on kind of the fan engagement, put the fan first, you focus on the experience. A lot of people talking, they'll say our matches are very different than Panthers games, which we want it to be. We don't want to come to the stadium and have the same experience. And even though it's a different sport, have the same experience. You want a different experiences. So we try to bring kind of that party vibe and party atmosphere. Our owner said when he got the expansion bid for the team, he's like, let's party. We're ready to party. And, we kind of took that and ran with it in terms of how do we make our match days a party, game in and game out. And so we've worked with our supporters to kind of use that as our tagline and as our anchor to make sure we elevate. So from having a DJ on the pitch every single game to our pre-match ceremonies and our processionals and the music that we're vibing to, and engaging with our fans and just pulling other things that make things organic to us and what Charlotte is. And I think our fans have really appreciated that and understood that and helped us build our brand that way as well.
So what I'm really curious to hear, because you've been on both sides of the equation. You were being a player, and now you're in a front office role. And everything you just talked about sounds super exciting and like something to be a part of, which, having lived in Atlanta, I was able to witness when Atlanta came into the league and seeing that from afar but not being a part of it. How does everything you just talked about, from fan engagement, player engagement, all the things you're trying to do around the stadium, around the field, how does that impact the culture of the team?
I mean, it impacts immensely. Just, our fans always talk about, our players always talk about our fans are the lifeblood, of the team. And they, we have some of the best fans across the world, really, and in MLS for sure. And that, you start to see, and as a player, you feel that, or as a player, I felt, that momentum and that energy and that contagiousness that fans brought. You knew when, fans were invested in their room behind you and pushing you. And so we try to piggyback on that. We try to maximize that as much as possible. And our fans definitely feel it, just in terms of, that they can be little things from, the PA announcements when, we're doing player introductions and, it's a call or response. To say a player's name, the crowd responds with the last name. Just knowing that fans know all these players too, like that helps fans attach themselves and helps fans relate to these players a little bit. And so, players are definitely aware in terms of, when fans understand or when fans are extremely engaged and paying attention to the game. And I think our fans did a fantastic job last year, just being eager to learn, because we had, a mix of, we had soccer peers who, watch every league, every single weekend, or glued to the TV. We had some casual fans who, they understand soccer. They may have played growing up, but didn't follow, once they got to their adulthood. We have kid fans. We have, fans of all different ethnicities, genders, nationalities, race. But the one thing about it is that they all kind of came together and they were able to start to understand collectively as the year went on. And I think that's a testament to, the product we were put out on the pitch, but also the product that we were providing from a match day presentation and a game entertainment standpoint as well.
So then within your role right now as president of MLS Next, okay, I'm new to MLS Next. MLS Next wasn't around when we were in the league together. What is MLS Next, and how does that differ from the academy system?
Yeah, so I'm going to correct you really, really quick on that one. So the league, very quickly, has kind of pieced together the pathway within MLS. So we have MLS Next, which is essentially like our academy league. That's where all of our academy teams play. So all of the MLS affiliated academy teams play in a league, MLS Next. So when the USDA folded during COVID in 2020, MLS stepped in, created MLS Next, and that's where all of our academy teams play. Last year, the league introduced MLS Next Pro. So that is our second division. Not second division, those are our second teams that play in the league, MLS Next Pro. And so this year, Charlotte FC will put a team into MLS Next Pro. Our team name's going to be Crown Legacy FC. But, you have your Inter Miami 2s and your Austin FC 2s and your Orlando City Bs. They'll all play in MLS Next Pro. Then obviously ladders up into the first team. So I've been brought on to be president of our MLS Next Pro team for Charlotte FC, which is Crown Legacy FC, and essentially helping build that pathway, help them, bring in the next generation of youth players, whether that be some of our homegrown players, high potential players in our youth regs, scouting internationally for prospects that we see that have the talent to push into the first team. Whether that's, looking at college draft picks as well, who need time to develop kind of in the second team before making the jump to the first team. And then you'll have players fluctuating between first team and second team, whether it's a player in their return to play protocol from injury, or it's a younger player who was on the first team who's not seeing the minutes, an opportunity for them to get out there and play. So MLS Next Pro, while I don't like to call it a reserve league, it's pretty much a second team to the first team. And that's what.
So is it fair to say, let's not even call it a second tier, it's like, right, you got your Premier League, your Championship, and then League One? Like, is that kind of how you guys are trying to organize it?
Well, yeah, I would say the good comparison, and you'll get this, is like MLS Next Pro is basically going to be like ours.
Okay.
Yeah. So, how each NBA team has an affiliation, kind of with their G League affiliate. Every MLS club, has a MLS affiliate and MLS Next Pro as well. But there'll also be some independent clubs playing in MLS Next Pro as well. So this year and last year, Rochester was an independent club, and the league's on a tier right now on an expansion strategy to bring soccer to more kind of smaller markets. These are kind of the markets that they'll target to put MLS Next Pro franchises.
That was gonna be my next question. Is like MLS Next Pro a precursor to be a franchise in MLS? Or are they truly like, hey, MLS Next Pro, maybe those smaller markets like you alluded to, like a Rochester, maybe a Birmingham, and then your actual MLS teams, those are different expansion?
Exactly. Okay, those are different markets. I'd say MLS Next Pro is kind of it's a strong focus on local communities. The pillars of MLS Next Pro, the local communities, diversity, equity, inclusion, player development. Player development's the biggest one. Having a platform and a league for, some of our high potential youth players, and then to scout, prospective talents internationally and bring them into MLS family and MLS fold, is what this is all about. So the pinnacle is player development, making sure, we're able to find the best players, bring them into our MLS environments, and for us in Charlotte, and develop those players to become first team players.
Gotcha. Now, within your role as president of the MLS Next Pro, president, I sat here different titles in soccer: sporting director, president. I think some teams still may say a general manager. So could you delineate what that means for you?
Yeah. So it's funny you ask that. I wear a number of different hats, which is fun. I assist our president on the first team, kind of first team business operations. For me, my main responsibility is leading the business operations for Crown Lakes CFC, our MLS Next Pro team. Then I work in tandem with our technical director, Bob Valaire, on kind of the technical aspects and the roster build, and our head of scouting, Thomas Shawling. So it's kind of a jack of all trades, kind of across the board, mostly focusing on the business operation. So that was building a brand. Like for us, we wanted to build a separate brand for our second team and not just be Charlotte FC2. And so we had a brand exploration, created a new identity for the team once we landed on Crown Lakes CFC. And so that was a big one. And then, obviously going into partnerships and ticket sales and our community engagement, how our players are showing up in the community and what that looks like, how my conversations with the league and, the board in terms of what future expansion looks like, what the league looks like going forward, how we can enhance things, how can we modify things from a league standpoint, which is also good for the first team. And so it's kind of a jack of all trades job, to be honest.
And so from your time as a player to migrating to the front office, do you feel like there's things now that you being as a player have dramatically influenced your ability to do what you're doing now on the front office side?
I mean, I think just a collective understanding, right? For me, when I retired, I wanted to learn the business behind the league more. That was just kind of where, that tickled my fancy a bit, just learning kind of. I've already been a player. I've known the competition aspect of it. I've known the technical side of it. Now let's kind of learn the business behind the league. What's driving the league? Why are certain decisions, being made? So for me, that was easier coming off the pitch into the front office side and kind of understanding the product. Like, the core product, I know this game inside and out. But to know kind of the nuts and bolts of, what drives revenue, how are brands looking to associate and partner with the league and trying to elevate their brands? How are you developing partnership packages that align with their goals and objectives? Understanding ticket sales a little bit, just understanding the real commercial value of the league and how that value kind of waters or cascades down to the player aspect also. So I think just having a general understanding, of the game and being involved in the game. And, I look back at, I was doing player appearances when I was playing in New England. And back then, it's like a fella just showed up, like a fella was just kind of engaging with some kids and, a brand, but to understand that this is like an asset that those brands, they paid for it. And as an asset that they value and an asset that they want to capitalize on. You start to understand that a little bit more once you're able to kind of remove yourself.
I think it's also a little bit different times too. I think the idea of sports being a bigger brand, and like you said, you're trying to create something separate from the first team, which I think is important as well. Right. I think maybe back then I was like, this is a minor detail I have to attend to as being a part of a player, as part of the roles, and maybe it's just tough to see the bigger picture. Because I remember y'all being like, oh, man, I got to go, I got this player appearance this afternoon. And sometimes you guys, a lot of times you guys would really enjoy those because they'd be part of organizations or associations you guys were invested in yourselves. But then at other times, kind of, they're just these random ones. And I guess it's maybe, what I'm hearing you say is it may be tough to if you don't understand the vision or the brand behind it, maybe it's hard to be invested in it.
Yeah, it's just like you didn't know what you didn't know. Like if certain brand aligned with your, with your thoughts and values and beliefs, like we were just kind of told. But like now, I feel like a lot of players are doing more to kind of peek behind the curtain and making sure, it's just twofold, right? Like making sure that values and beliefs are aligned, but also making sure that, how can it be a two-way street? It's not just providing something to the partner, but how can a partner kind of provide something back to the players, or it's mutually beneficial to kind of live both.
Absolutely. Because there's always the business side of it too. At the end of the day, you are, as a player, you want to go out and just play the game that you love. But one thing I've realized that we're all in a space of entertainment. Right. And there's a product you have to sell, and it's not just the product that's on the field as well, because there's other ways to generate revenue aside from ticket sales.
Right. And it's just like it's relationships, right? Building relationships. Like back then, it's just like, okay, you'll be here at 3 p.m. on autographs for an hour, and then you leave. But like they look without road to know, I'm sure you can, sympathize with this. Is just like how important relationships are. Wherever you go, whether it's a personal or professional relationship or business relationship, like investing time into those relationships, because you never know, when you can help each other out, or when something's gonna, kind of come to fruition, or play it out when you'll need someone or when they'll need you. It's all, relationship based. And I'm not saying you do things to get something of return, but just actually building and connecting, with people. I think there's true value in that, just to expand networks and to expand thinking and expand growth.
Well, then we're human beings at the end of the day.
Right.
And like we thrive on relationships. Right. And if you don't have those, I think you probably struggle in whatever you're trying to do.
Yeah. 2,000%. And good more.
So if we run it back to when you were a player, like it's kind of like two really like questions that like I've been like really curious about the last few days that I thought about when we were going to link up. First one is your time from playing every minute to every game your first year to at some point in your career having some tough injuries to battle through, right? So being a player that had a good career, played several games, played many years, mostly with the same club, which is not common nowadays. How did you manage to stay positive during those tough times?
Yeah, I think it's tough. I mean, I think it's a mindset, right? It's just, staying the course. I think a lot of it comes to how I was brought up, just control the controllables. Like there's some things that, cross your path that you just absolutely have no control over, and you can't, there's no need to spend much energy on that. And for me, I tried to, I value myself as being a locker room guy and trying to be a positive influence on people and positive attitude, and just being very optimistic about things. And, if you spent time and energy, things you could control, it was wasted time and energy. And so, you got to maximize for you. You got to maximize each day. You got to maximize each opportunity that you're given. And if you're, spending time, sulking about an injury, you're not spending time trying to be better. And so that's just how I attacked everything. And I think it's probably something that was instilled in me, by my parents, just in terms of, put your best foot forward, and try to go out there every day and, do everything you can to be better and get a bit better each day. And so I tried not to, although there's easier said than done, there's always some challenges that come your way. You get through those by being mentally tough and mentally strong.
You mentioned kind of like doing the things day in and day out, just showing up, being a good pro. Right. Like from training, rehab, were there things that you found that helped you along the way to kind of maybe find those wins on the days that maybe were a little bit more challenging, or the days that were a bit more monotonous, so to speak?
Yeah, I think for me it's just, you try to find that routine, and you have to think of it to your point of being a pro. Like if you were healthy and you're going out there, going out on the pitch, you're going out on the court, field, whatever, you're going out there trying to give it your best, and you're going out there trying to perform to an elite status, right? You're trying to give your absolute best. And so when I attacked rehab or any type of injuries I had, I tried to do the exact same thing. Like where as an athlete, you're a competitor. You're trying to when you do rehab, you're trying to beat yourself every single day and get a bit better every day. So like for me, I attacked everything as if it was a training or if it was a match, and just tried to make sure I was winning. Just having that winning mentality. That's something I think helped me persevere, push through when I had injuries. Then sometimes you can have a winning mentality and then go out and lose. Is that particularly times means this what that dust yourself off, go back and course correct and see where you maybe have made some mistakes, and go back, watch the tape, and do it again.
One thing that comes up on this show a few times is like the concept of finding a small win, right? Because in sports, right, like you're always going for the win at the end of the week, at the end of the night, whatever it may be. But like what I just heard you say is sometimes you just gotta show up with the right attitude. Like how would you define what a small win is from your time playing?
I mean, a small win for me on the pitch could be, as a defender, was a tackle. It could be the first pass, like trying to do something positive, trying to influence the game in a positive light. From an injury standpoint, it was, support teammates. Been out there when you couldn't go out there and perform. How do you support your teammates, and how could you, give advice to younger players that are getting their opportunity to be a professional? It was, making progress. When I'm had knee injury, when you're on the alter G top, and you go a little bit faster, and you take a little bit of that resistance off. lift a little bit more, squat a little bit deeper, like just those small ways, just tracking progress, just, trying to measure things in a way that you're able to track your progress and see growth, because it could be easy to go out there and just, kind of willy-nilly go day by day and not track anything, but to actually track your process and see where you're making strides, or not even strides, where you're making baby steps. I think being able to see that, for me, I'm a visual person, so being able to actually see that helped me, look over the long course and the long term. Like, I've taken all these small baby steps, and it's got me at 2 yards,
So you said the other point I was really curious to hear your take on, and you kind of alluded to it just there, was being able to measure it, or a small objective, right? When my entry point with the Revs was sports science, and that big green box, the Adidas My Coach, right? So, right, like as a player that probably early in the league, there wasn't much sports science analytics, a lot of tech, to now being in a position in the front office where analytics and tech is a part of everything that we do. What is your perspective on sports science and analytics?
Man, I mean, I wish I would have had more of it, more data to help me make informed decisions, back where I was playing. But I think, like you said, everything is data-driven, and I still think there's an eye test to some things, right? But I do think having that data to help guide, to manage performance and manage load, helping prevent injuries, helping prevent fatigue. All this data, more information, is more information the better for me. And obviously, people can extract it and, manipulate it how they want to, which is what the sports scientists and the data scientists are for, and that's why people get paid the big bucks to kind of focus on that. But I think having the information, handy to be able to make informed decisions, and then you can go do it what you want from there. But being able to have that data and information to make, educated, informed decisions, and for the most part, it pays off. I think it's fantastic, and hopefully that just continues to advance and more people continue to buy in to have to make it, sports science, data science, and data analytics kind of more the big pinnacle of making decisions, because we make decisions based on data, or backed by data, I should say. I think you're making a more informed decision.
One point I hear some players speak on is when it comes to collecting data, because now there's a piece of tech for everything. Right, you can measure everything from heart rate to sleep to how much you eat, to, right, everything that's out there. There's an app for it. There's a piece of tech for it. One argument I hear from some players, and I agree with it at times, is this information going to hurt my negotiations for a future contract? Right, so someone that's been a player and also on the front office side, do you think there's merit to that comment, that argument, or is that just come down to how the information is being interpreted?
I think it's come down how it's been interpreted. And I also think, bad on any sporting director, GM, for using data against players. At the end of the day, it's biometrics, it's biology, some of it, in terms of how players are, I guess, biologically developed. There's some things that players just can't control that shit. If you're performing on the day, I feel like, conversations and negotiations should be based on performance and not necessarily on, makeup of how a person is formed, physiologically. So I would say, I would agree with that standpoint that data shouldn't be used against players, or, should be using against players to find a gap in terms of how they, should be negotiated from a contract standpoint. I'll always be at players' quarters from that standpoint.
Okay, rightfully so. Are there over the years, are there certain any technology, even what you guys may be using right now, without giving away any dark, deep secrets? Are there any pieces of tech that you believe in were beneficial for yourself, or you're seeing beneficial for current players?
I think, just from a load management, like Catapult, I think they do a good job for us, for Shaw FC. Just because you're able to monitor a number of metrics, and one time just from power, workload, and like you said, heart rate, and then just some of the video analytics tools that we utilize. But I think just from a health and performance, those honestly, I can't even keep up with every single thing that our performance and medical team uses, from the machines that they use to track hamstring strength, and like you said, track sleep, just your biomechanics, like all of that. I think anything that you can have that's focusing on, that's helping prevent injury. I think that is certainly like worth the investment. And, obviously you can get into details in terms of things that are like what's harmful, like what's going to actually interrupt rather than help, in terms of tracking things. So I think you got to be careful there in terms of, what's kind of affect players later down the road that you may not know right now. But I think for the most part, the experts that are comfortable with this space.
Because that was my follow-up I have to that was like, how much is too much, right? Because at the end of the day, your job is to perform on the field, and all this is ancillary things that require time. That the goal is to optimize your performance on a field. But I have been a part of situations and heard of and seen how sometimes the need to collect tech or utilize tech or implement the data sometimes takes over from maybe just the true coaching and performance on the field. Like, how do you balance that?
Yeah, I would think all information is reserved for everybody. I think, I'd say like the data scientists and the sports scientists, like they can have all that information manipulated. Honestly, I don't think like players shouldn't have to or shouldn't be given all the information that, that's going through all the different formulas to get where a certain number, because it's kind of being ahead in terms of how you're performing. I think just understanding from a very high level and top level standpoint, like, this is your heart rate. Why your heart rate this, like when you do certain movements, this is where it peaks, or where's your load in these, this small assignment session, or this passing drill, or this game, and you could see like you were running this much because, you're wanting it's this type of player. And you seem to struggle when it's X type of player. I think that type of information is what players need, but when you start getting into the super minutia details of it all, I think that's when it starts to kind of be more of a mental block than anything else.
That's almost like too much theory.
It's just a little bit of overload. It's like information overload, whereas it's like when you can actually seek data and you can make an objective decision in terms of how you want to proceed, or that's going to have a objective impact on, on your play, then 2,000%. But if it's not objectively impacted your play in terms of how you play, because being out there, it's artistic, right? It's personality, it's how you play, it's how you interpret the game. Like people talk about poetry of motion. There's truth to that in terms of how players play and how they express themselves. So I think giving too much data could sometimes strip players away of their personality in terms of how they interpret and how they play the game.
Did you ever feel like from your time as a player that you ever got in a position that like information overload?
No, I was a dinosaur, man. I didn't get too much. I mean, we wore heart rate monitors that we had to start to wear the GPS toward the back end. So I don't necessarily think it was information. I'm overloaded at that point. I think I wanted more information to seek out. But I mean, I think right now we're at a good spot in terms of information that players are receiving. I think we could be teetering on information overload a little bit. Just, there's time to, like, people have families as an example. You're talking about like sleep, and obviously sleep is extremely important, but you don't understand like what goes on behind the scenes in terms of, family dynamics and family issues. And, player just had a newborn that, has to be up and it wants to be involved in the kid's life and not just kind of pass it on to a nanny or a night caretaker, like, but they want to be involved. Like those are like human components you have to think of, whereas like sleep tech and sleep monitors aren't going to sort of pick that up. Like you can get that anecdotally from the player, but just looking at the data, it's going to look like you can interpret that as one thing or another.
It's like it's data without context. I mean, you can speak on this because you just had a newborn, right? Like I'm sure you can speak upon, man, if I was a player right now, I don't know if my sleep would be great. And right, you probably want to be a part of your kid's life. And like you said, do some of those things. So I think it's a great point you bring up, because I think sometimes we get lost in just looking at the myopic piece of data. I think, the way I approach data is it should be a starting point for a conversation to just lend itself to ask more questions and be willing to say, oh, well, because like you just alluded to, newborn wants to be a part of their life. Okay, we know these next 3 months, this person's going to struggle with sleep at times. How can we try to maximize the times when they do sleep?
Yeah, I think you brought up a good point. Like a lot of people look at the data and just make an assumption straight out the data and not ask those questions. Like, that question should be asked, but you got to take that, internalize that, and objectify that how you see fit as well. Like, you got to give that opportunity to provide context instead of making an assumption based off the numbers that you're seeing.
Fair. So from your time playing, front office, did you do any coaching at all? I did some youth stuff now?
No, I mean, coached like a little bit, but not in terms of like properly. I will, once my kid gets older, like I'll reserve most of my coaching, the coaching there. Like for me, I needed to separate, once I was done playing, kind of separate the coaching and competition aspect of it all.
I got you. So over the time, like from training, rehab, tech, no tech, if someone, general pop, right, not necessarily a pro athlete or a college athlete, wants to upgrade health or performance, right, their own training and rehab, do you have any advice for them?
Upgrade. In terms of upgrade, I mean, I think it's more about it's personalized, right? And I would say, I'd stick to a lot of like the old school methods, right? Just in terms of taking care of your body, like your nutrition. I think the nutrition component, that's a big piece that gets left out. I know a little bit when you're talking about rehab, like when you're going through a rehab, you can't necessarily, maybe should necessarily eat in the exact same way that if you play it, right? Because you're not being as active, and so those are things that you may want to monitor a little bit from a nutritional standpoint. But I would say, like when you're attacking rehab and going through things, just kind of sector off, right? Just in terms of what do you need from a nutrition standpoint, what do you need from a strength and conditioning standpoint. Obviously, players now or people now, athletes now, is it weights versus kind of resistance? People, you see Tom Brady more resistance based, and you see the longevity that he's had, but his body type isn't everyone else's body type. So I would say kind of just do like personal assessments, I guess, is probably the best way to go about it, understanding, your body type and your needs. I think a lot of people go into things and not understanding like who they are or what their body has the capacity to do or what their body should be doing. And it's just it's not customized or personalized. So I would think kind of challenging your healthcare professionals and, performance professionals to make sure that everything that you're doing is customized to you. And they shouldn't know your body better than you do.
So then from that point, follow-up to that is people in my space, physical therapists, athletic trainers, performance coaches, sports scientists, we have all these big conferences. They're like, hey, let's get together. How can we help our athletes be better? What does the research say? Sometimes a question I think we often miss is actually just going to the source. Right. And I think like you're a Ted Lasso fan?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Like the scene where it's like the end of season 2 and they're playing the false nine, and Roy Kent says, just go ask them, right? So I think we forget to sometimes ask the players, hey, like, how can we be better for y'all? All right, so for those in my space, do you have any advice for us how we can better support players?
I think we hit on earlier. I think ask more questions, right? Ask more questions about the why behind the data, that you're seeing. Or if it's an answer you don't want to hear, go help out a layer deeper in like why were you doing that instead of to net help such result. Because I think the more just have like this like therapeutic conversations and get to know player. We're talking about earlier too, just relationship, like building that relationship outside of just wanting to know like the performance piece of it, but understand their life dynamics, right? The personal dynamics. So I think all of that helps in terms of like building that relationship and understanding what people would be, more or less comfortable with from a performance and a rehab standpoint. Other than that, man, like that's what you got to do. You got to do your job the best in terms of understanding the tech and specs and, when to push and when to pull back. But I thought, let's say to that, like kind of explaining that out to players as well. Like these are the days that we're going to kind of push a little bit and get more aggressive with rehab. And for players and athletes to understand, okay, why behind this? Why are we pushing or been more aggressive with the rehab when, maybe it doesn't feel the best this day? We need to understand thresholds. I think understand that as whereas a lot of the athletes just kind of go with the flow, right? It's like here's the itinerary for the day, here's the schedule for the day, this is what we're gonna do. But maybe give athletes opportunity to give some input in that within means, right? Not obviously understanding like all the exercises that are gonna help certain parts of the body, but give them some input in terms of like how the itinerary is being structured.
What I hear is education and having a voice.
Yeah, which could be a theme of life.
Yeah, you think that one. Are you excited for the new Ted Lasso season?
Oh yeah.
When's it kick off? 2 weeks, I think. Yeah, middle of March.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what angle they take. But they take with this one. So I need to find out where to get MLS. And
they got them in FIFA. They got them in the FIFA video game. They've got them in the TBT that's going on out here, or the adult tournament. I think not Ted Lasso, but Wrexham has the TST. Yeah. Wrexham's got a team out here.
And that's a team, and there's a couple more high-profile teams that are going to be joining in there. So I think us as a club we'll find a way to get involved because it'll be in Raleigh or Barry, North Carolina. So we're in that back.
Okay, cool. One last question before you get out of here, bro. You played with some characters, my man. You played with some characters. What was one of your most favorite, like, memorable moments being a pro athlete, playing in sports?
I mean, I'm gonna say the cliché answer of them all is just you said play with characters, just the locker room, like the vibes of the locker room. You know, just all the banter about this guy's like holding underwear. I've got a playlist, and at tough moments, water bottles being thrown at people's head. Like it was just the banter, and you knew you had to come in like top notch. Like you had to be on your toes, and you had to have some thick skin to be in a professional locker room. I think that's what I miss most because a lot of people don't know about like what you do in the locker room. You can't say the things in a professional environment that you would in the locker room. Like locker room talk is a real thing, and not saying that it's like negative by any means, but like the way that you can just kind of chop it up and have real conversations with some of your boys and some of your best friends and some that aren't your best friends. I think that's something that's kind of undervalued a little bit, and not anything that you get the rest of once you transition from playing, you'll never have that opportunity again. So I definitely miss those moments, just being able to kind of banter with the guys and tell stories and road trips, all those things. You enjoy that time. It all alludes to some of the success and things that you can look back on.
I won't press the buttons of asking what particular story is your favorite. We'll save that one for the end.
Press in the membrane.
Oh man, well, this has been fun catching up with you today. I know you got a lot going on with the role here at Charlotte, trying to grow that space. Is there a space for people to follow what you guys are doing, kind of help promote what y'all are doing and what you're about?
Yeah, man, I'd like to just encourage everyone, follow Charlotte FC, follow Crown Legacy FC, charlottefc.com, and then crownlegacyfc.com as well.
Sweet. Oh, when do you guys play the next game?
First team, Charlotte FC, plays this weekend against St. Louis. So they're the new kids on the block this weekend. Last year, we were the new kids on the block, and then Crown Legacy FC kicks off on Sunday, March 26th.
Okay, sweet. We'll stay tuned for those then.
Sounds good. Appreciate it, man.